Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
There we are, and greetings and salutations, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've tuned into Dr. Judy WTF, which is What the Freud. I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and Dr. Judy and special guest is in studio today. And we are continuing our series on borderline personality disorder, BPD. This is kind of part 3, but the title is The Ups and Downs of Borderline Personality Disorder and the Effects on Others. And this is a call-in show. So we really need you, as you've done the last few weeks, thank you so much, to get on the couch with Dr. Judy, because I know there's a lot of you out there, that's what we've been told. And our number is area code 323-843-2826. So stay tuned. We're also going to shrink a tune, a really special, very popular one, and we're going to figure out who we are. So, Doctor, what's going on?
Well, it's been a very, very busy week. I first want to thank the audience and extend my extreme appreciation and gratitude to everybody who has written in, called in, and we've had a lot of people who have signed up for mind map therapy, and we're delighted to have you and take you on this journey. And for those of you who don't know, we actually have a mind map journey, kind of like a journal, up on our website now. So if you go to Dr. Judy WTF, you can actually download it off of the resources, and if you like, you could print it out for yourself and take your own journey, or better yet, you can sign up for the mind map system and have one of our therapists take you through the journey. So I just want to talk a little bit about borderline personality disorder and what it was like for me as a young intern. I did not know what's borderline personality disorder. You know, like what border are they on? Are they
which
psychotic?
Country?
Yeah, what? Yeah, exactly. And do we have to build a wall? No, just kidding. Just
exactly.
kidding.
Boundaries are important.
Boundaries are important. But what my experience is that they had very labile emotions, meaning that their emotions were rapidly changing, and I didn't know who I was going to be seeing that day. Not insofar as a multiple personality disorder kind of disorder, but I didn't know if they were going to be upset and angry, whether they were going to be trying to drop out of therapy that day, whether they were going to be over-idealizing me that day. And pretty soon I learned that the problem is really to do with emotional dysregulation. And for those of you who know a little bit about the mind map system and the cause behind our psychopathology, or at least our inorganic psychopathology, because we know that there are organic reasons why people are mentally not doing well, but we focus on the inorganic reasons, attachment theory, and how during the first few years of life, if we're injured, if we're emotionally injured, if we're physically injured, if we're sexually abused, if we're neglected or smothered, it's going to show up in terms of wounds, emotional wounds, reactions, and encoding. And if you would be so kind as to put the mind map up, I will go through it.
And
with
those
everyone.
that are listening, you can actually go to drjudywtf.com and see the mind map there. Or if you are listening on your smartphone, or it happens to be an iPhone, you can download the app, Psychological Healing Center, and you can see it too.
Absolutely. So if you look at the mind map, it is divided into 3 rows. The top row represents the wounds of childhood: physical, verbal, sexual abuse, neglect, and smothering, spoiling. The middle row represents how that impacts the psyche and how it causes chaos, defense mechanisms, and breakdowns. And then finally, the bottom row represents the morph out, the paradigm shift out of the mental unhealth into health and recoding. So it's kind of like a tracking of how we encode our mental unhealth, how to decode, and how to recode into health. And so I just want to mention, do we have a call-in?
No, I was going to say, and then if you want to learn more about this, you can
Okay.
actually get Dr. Judy's book.
Thank you.
It's entitled Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, and it's available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback form. And got a testimonial along those lines. If you want me to read it real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't have enough words of gratitude for stumbling upon your amazing conversations on YouTube. I'm reading your book, Dr. Judy, and it's helping heaps and giving me lots of ahas, not only for myself as a child, but the relationships that reopened the wounds along the way and my parenting deflects. Probably the biggest aha has been the wounding is not necessarily about a single trauma, but many hundreds of mini traumas every day over years and years.
Right.
Far out, game changer.
Oh, that's
Thank
so
you.
nice. And thank you so much for writing that beautiful testimonial. And so I call the book Be the Cause because I want you all to be the cause and not at the effect of life. So it's
And at the end of every chapter, to prove that, you learn how to think like a shrink.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So the Be the Cause model is about having you be the cause of the better outcome for your life versus being at the effect of all the wounds and all the reactions and poor encodings and so on. So many of you have been watching the show, and many of you know that I have a team of people on staff who work with me, who train in the mind map system, and they work on a sliding scale basis. And actually, we have one of the team members in the studio. And welcome, Jay. This, everybody, is Jay Clapperman, and he is the person that is doing the Skype therapy, the phone therapy. So if you live in another state, or also the one-on-one therapy in the office. So for those of you who are out of state and you want to avail yourself of the mind map therapy, I just want you to know that we have lovely, trained, intelligent people. Jay, you have a master's degree in
Yes.
psychology.
From Pepperdine University,
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay.
marriage and family therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And he's Mr. Sliding Scale.
Yeah,
Mr. Sliding Scale, right.
Yeah, so at the Psychological Healing Center, we like to help our clients in any way we can. So by providing a sliding scale, we hopefully will eliminate the financial obstacles that
Yeah.
some people face.
Right.
And
Correct.
know that they're still going to get the highest level of care from us, and they can trust that we're going to focus in on their problems and issues, and because that's the basis of the mind map.
Right.
We focus in, we get to the core of the problem quickly. So it's not a drawn-out kind of therapy situation.
And Jay, I know that one of the reasons that you contacted me is because you really liked the treatment plan that the mind map offers. Many people who are interns studying to be psychotherapists, psychologists, have a very, very broad treatment plan. It's not as focused, it's not time limited. This particular therapeutic system is time limited to 10 sessions and then follow up. And so I'm just curious because I know that you've had training at other clinics and so on, and what is it like from your perspective to actually have a mind map system and work within that particular system with the clients, patients?
The benefit of it is you're able to map out what your plan is quickly, get to the point, move the client through to different stages, and have them get it. Okay, you know, you can talk and talk and talk, but they need to like understand what is going on in their life. And that's the benefit and the beauty of the mind map system. You're able to like focus in and get to the core of what the issue is. And the clients really respond really well to it. You heard the testimonial. I've read many others. You know, the system works. So I'm thrilled that I'm able to work under you.
Thank you. Thank you. And you've been a really wonderful asset. Jay also specializes in helping people in recovery. You have a lot of background with ChemDep, which is one of the reasons that I thought
Chemical
you would be
dependency.
chemical
Yes.
dependency. I took you on. And also, Jay has a very sharp mind. He gets it really, really quickly. And although he's only been with the team for a handful of months, I really think your brain has wrapped around it, and it must be interesting for you to work in a 10-session framework versus an endless talk therapy framework where nothing gets done. And speaking of borderline personality disorder, one of the aspects of borderline personality disorder is that they have to be contained. And so I can't think of a better system to contain
Yeah.
emotionally dysregulated people than the mind map, because it really, first of all, takes the onus off of them, because they know that whatever is going on with them, the ups and the downs of the acting out of the BPD, which we'll get into
Yeah,
today.
I have one friend who's a huge borderline, and the weight of the world, no matter what the issue is of the day, is on their shoulders. It's just nuts.
Yeah, it's heavy. And again,
Yeah.
you know, we use these labels, and I use the labels because people understand labels. But the way that we think about things within the system is we think about things in terms of human disconnect. So you have to understand that the fallout material of the BPD symptoms has to do with mother, infant, father, infant, disconnect, emotional dysregulation. Going back to attachment theory, as you know, what does it take to form a human psyche, right?
Right.
I mean, now you know, right? And you can tell your patients right away that if you haven't been breastfed, if you haven't had eye contact and skin contact and consistency, if your mother's all over the emotional place and doesn't have the patience or the time to really be there to regulate you, you have to understand that we don't self-regulate as infants. It's an outside-in model. It's not, we don't build ourselves from the inside out. We're built by looking and gazing into the eyes of our caretaker, our primary caretaker. And unfortunately, if we don't have a stable primary caretaker, then we don't have that heartbeat, that skin contact, that emotional regulation that makes for us to bring in what we call in psychoanalytic talk, the good enough mother, the good enough stable mother. So now that you've had a chance to meet a lot of people, maybe you could talk a little bit about what it's like from your experience to work with people who are really highly emotionally dysregulated and act out a lot. Either they're acting out by cutting their wrist, or they're suicidal, or they're speeding, or they're shopping, or they're
Impulsive.
They're impulsive. What's it like using that mind map? What's your experience with the containment piece of it?
So the clients that I've worked with so far, if we go back to the attachment, what happened between the mother and the child? Mm-hmm. What role does the father play in the picture? In a lot of cases, there's a divorce. And when that occurs, there's a lot of emotions that the mother would be feeling and thereby projecting those onto the child.
Yes.
So the child then doesn't understand it at that age. So let's say it's the formative years, like 1 through 3.
Yeah.
So they're a toddler. All they know is that things are changing.
Right.
Something's different.
Yes.
And maybe it has something to do with them.
Well, kids think that way.
Yeah, it's their
Children think
fault.
that it's all their fault,
Yeah, it's all
right?
their
So
fault.
they're very egocentric, meaning that they live in a world where, if only I were a little nicer, mommy would love me. If only I were behaving, daddy wouldn't hit me. If only I didn't cause so much trouble, my parents wouldn't be fighting or drinking or whatever. So everything is centered around it's all my fault. And in the case of the borderline personality disorder, the person who becomes dysregulated, oftentimes they have to be in a position of regulating their parents' emotions, which throws them even further off of emotional regulation. And so we talk a lot about this actually in terms of a metaphor. So panel 1, if you could put that up on the board.
And those of you that are listening, you can actually check this out at drjudywtf.com. And again, this is a call-in show, so if you want to get on the couch with either Jay or Dr. Judy, now's a perfect time. The number is 323-843-2826.
So if you look at the mind map and you look at the panels as metaphors, and you look at panel 1, that represents the womb, the internal world, the mother, and the little black dots represent the wounds from mother to infant, the disconnects, so to speak. And so in panel 2, what that represents metaphorically is the outside world. So the first outside world the child encounters is usually dad, right? And so if dad isn't nurturing mom, see, it's a trickle-down system. We think systems here. So if dad isn't nurturing mom, then mom isn't nice and calm, and she's emotionally dysregulated, and then she passes that on to her infants. So the best thing that can be in terms of a family structure is lots of consistency, lots of containment, lots of boundaries.
And we like to say, in terms of mom and dad, your inner world is a byproduct of the relationship you did or did not have with your mom, and your outer world is a relationship of what you did or didn't have with your dad.
Thank you.
And if you've had a goofy one with both, you're in what Dr. Judy calls the double dungeon.
The double dungeon of darkness.
Triple D.
The DDD, meaning that the child goes inward for comfort. There's nothing in there because they haven't formed a healthy core self. The child turns to mom, but she's not really emotionally available. She turns to dad, and now she's emotionally screwed. She doesn't know which way to turn.
And then there's the issue, of course, did they ever learn how to self-soothe? And if not,
That's the
then
issue.
there you go.
That is the issue. At the core of this particular personality disorder is a real deep, dark fear of abandonment.
Abandonment, exactly.
So they will attempt to avoid real or imagined
everything they can
abandonment. And
avoid
that
it.
cracked lens of perception, which is their negative core belief, which goes something like, even I don't exist.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not
or
important.
I'm invisible.
I'm a nothing.
I'm invisible.
Right, I'm a nothing. It's something along those lines, as you've heard in the therapeutic, right? When they report to you their negative core belief, and so because they don't have this definition, they will look at everything through the cracked lens of perception that they're going to be abandoned. So if somebody doesn't mirror them properly, that can throw them off. So what I mean by mirror them is that if they are needing eye contact or they're needing attention, they will dysregulate quickly if they don't get the mirroring and the eye contact and the attention, and then they'll go spin off into that person doesn't love me, that person's going to leave me. And then there's a lot of effects on the other person. Speaking of effects on the other person,
I think
how
we're
do you
getting a
think
call
other
coming in
people
here.
feel about this fluctuating situation? So is there a call
Rumor
coming
has it
in?
we're getting a call in through the
Oh,
studio.
cool.
So we'll see.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so go on and we'll give me.
Okay.
I'm just forewarning you.
Sure. Okay.
This is live radio, folks.
So it's really confusing. I'm thinking back to my days as a student. I could recall one patient, and she was diagnosed by my supervisors as BPD.
And here we are.
Okay, go ahead. Great.
Hey, thanks for calling. You're on the couch with Dr. Judy.
Well, thank you.
Hello.
This is Sherry from Louisiana.
Oh, hello
Hi, Sherry.
from Louisiana.
Very nice to talk to you. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah.
So can you identify with
I have
any
a-
of these comments that we're making?
I haven't been able to listen. I wasn't listening to the show prior to the call.
Okay. We're talking about borderline personality disorder and the emotional dysregulation and the ups and the downs in the mood and the fear of abandonment and that kind of hollow, empty core self. So I'm just wondering if, what your question is and whether.
And how can we help?
Yes.
Well, my daughter's 24. She's our oldest daughter, and she married about 4 years ago, and she married a borderline. And pretty much most of the marriage, she's been silent treatment, and it's because he wants her all to himself, and she left him for a short while, and he claimed that he was going to kill himself and several
there
things
it
like
is.
that.
Right.
So, my thing is, how do we communicate with someone like that? And basically, since they're not talking to us.
Good question.
Wow. Yes, I remember you wrote me a very, very detailed letter about this, and it's super sad because I know that you're so wanting contact with your daughter, and sometimes we lose our children because they get lost in these dynamics, and especially when they're adults, it's really hard for mothers to reach them because of free choice. They don't have to talk to us, right? It's not like they're little kids and they have to come home. So how have you tried to reach out to your daughter? What attempts have you made?
Well, the first couple of years it was texting, email. She doesn't respond to a phone call and answer that. And then she stopped responding to the text.
Okay, so I just want to go back to systems thinking for a moment and understand that whatever's happening between her husband and her is like a system unto itself. And so her husband's core, if he truly is borderline, I don't know if he's been properly diagnosed that way, but you can kind of tell by his acting out and his suicidal ideation. And so if she's threatening the bond and he's threatening his life when she threatens the bond, then she's in a hostage situation. Do you understand? And so one of the fears that she might be having is that mom and dad are going to bust the system. And then if you bust the system and tell her what an unhealthy relationship she's in, and if she leaves the relationship and then he suicides, well, guess who's going to feel tremendous, tremendous responsibility and guilt? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, so nobody wants to bust that
was
system.
A lot of my text.
Pardon me?
Say again.
Yeah, that was a lot of my text where, I was telling her that she was in that kind of a situation.
Right. So what, one
eyes
of the,
wide open.
I'm sorry? Oh, the eyes wide open, that you wanted her to wake up. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every mother wants her daughter to not be in such a situation. It's just that she's not ready to pull out of the situation. Okay. And at this point, she's probably blocking you because you're a threat to this system, and her system cannot take a threat to this system because she has probably a level of codependency going on with her husband. In the sense that she feels tremendously responsible. So clearly there's something that's not 100% healthy about her in the sense that she's involved in this, but now that she's involved with this, she doesn't want to pull the plug on it and risk that
And take responsibility.
Now, both you and I and Walt and Jay sitting here as witness to this know that it's not her responsibility to make sure that he doesn't off himself. Okay, that's for him to really look within himself and get proper help and treatment, and that would be the best thing that can happen here is that that the system gets worse and worse and worse and starts decompensating, and maybe that they don't threaten the bond necessarily between each other, but that she says to him, look, honey, I love you dearly, and at the same time, however you're acting, this up and down of who you are is making me sick, and I'm going to stick by your side, if she can, and take you for psych evaluation and get some help. And what borderline personality disorders most need is they need secure attachment. And so by her letting him know perhaps that she's not leaving him, however, she needs him to step up to the plate and get that treatment. So it's not an abandonment. However, it is a kind of a forcing the system into mental health. And sometimes we play that part. And I think clearly they're giving you a signal that no, go away, don't threaten. So I think one thing that you can definitely focus on is not to threaten the system by requiring her to leave. It would be more along the lines of showing great concern that they're in this dysfunctional system, and what can we do to help you guys so that you can receive the proper help.
The way I see it, although I'm no therapist, is you don't want to rock.
Oh, yes, you are by this point, Walt. Honorary PhD right here. Okay.
Piled higher and deeper. You don't want to rock the boat, but the boat's already been rocked.
Right. That's true.
And you know what? It's too late. So and you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Right.
But you want to get help, and it's like, hey, let's get help together.
That's
Nobody's
it.
going to abandon anybody. I'm not
That's
going to
it.
abandon you, but this lack of communication and the way we're doing it isn't working for anybody. So if you want help, you want it to be together, you don't want to be abandoned, then you need to get in the boat together, and we'll go get some help and figure this out.
There we go. So my philosophy, if possible, is don't drop the person, help the person drop their pathology.
Yeah, it's not the individual, it's the symptom.
It's the symptom because the symptoms are born out of cause, and the cause is all these wounds that I'm talking about. And these symptoms are distortions, they're reactions to, I call them buy-ins to lies like belief systems that they don't matter, or that they're worthless, or any of this. And unfortunately, people buy into these lies. Why? Because they get the messaging from their parents that they're not worth anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal. Don't try not to dump the person. Have the person dump the problem. However, if the person refuses to dump the problem, at some point you have to save your own, and
have
sometimes
some
you
boundaries.
have to move on and let go of that person and use the AA philosophy, let go with love, and bring that person to treatment so that they can feel contained. And you don't just drop the person, you've got to hand the person over to the higher power of a psychologist or psychotherapist or inpatient center where they treat these conditions, and so that they feel contained, because there is a chance that they will suicide. So you just can't cut the rope and let them,
and
let them
unfortunately,
go.
the odds are with borderlines, the suicide odds are a little higher than other challenges, mental health challenges.
And I understand, Walt, that this personality disorder is not only common among women, it's common among men as well. And so we see a lot, and see, you're exactly right. You are experiencing the chaos. The title of our show tonight is The Ups and Downs of the Borderline Personality Disorder and Their Effects on Others. So you can see that
the ripple effect.
Her effect on you is enormous. Her effect on your husband is enormous. Her effect on the effect of this system is reverberating onto everybody that's involved with the ripple effect.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I just want to reiterate, you're perceived as a threat, and she's not willing to take responsibility to leave the relationship and risk him committing suicide. That makes sense to you, doesn't it?
Does that help or put any things in perspective?
Yes, it helps a lot.
Okay.
It really does.
Okay, so
It's
just
really been hard on her younger sister.
hard on her younger sister.
Everybody's
Everybody's being.
impacted.
So just right now, just
Yeah,
sometimes you really have to just take care of yourself, and you have a husband and you have other children, and there's nothing that you can do at this point. And so really you just have to kind of back away from the system, because really there's not a lot that you can do or say to change this.
Is there a specific chapter in your book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, that if they got it, they should read first?
Oh, you mean relating to this particular
I'm just wondering if
subject?
there's any particular chapter.
I think there's a chapter on boundaries,
Okay.
and that's a really important chapter, because the borderlines have very, very malleable boundaries. Narcissists, which we've talked about quite a bit, have a hard shell boundary. They don't like to let anything in, and so they die on the vine because they're so defended
Rigid.
that there's no light that goes in.
Yeah, they're very
okay.
rigid.
And with the borderline, they're very porous in their personality, so they let a lot of darkness in. They don't know how to discriminate between good people, bad people, people that are going to nurture them, people that are going to hurt them, because they don't have that inner rudder. They don't have the stability to really judge who's right. And then the whole cracked lens of perception makes everything look very distorted. So I would read Panel 5 if you want to direct your attention on the boundaries of the borderline, and also work on your own boundaries so that you don't go crazy in the process. Okay, thank you so much for calling in. I really, really appreciate your question. I hope it helps other people to understand just how difficult this is, and if you have a family member that's suicidal and acting out and all over the map in terms of emotional lability, emotional dysregulation, then you can probably know that person was really, really injured at the causal level, and that you have to a little bit walk on eggshells with that person. And that's another sign. If you're walking on eggshells, you're probably with the borderline, because you don't want to set them off. You don't want them to implode, and you don't want them to explode. And here at the Psychological Center, Healing Center, what we do is we don't encourage people to
implode or explode, but to unload.
Thank you, Walt.
Yes.
Thank you.
So thanks for calling, and hope that helps. Call back after a while. Let us know how it worked.
You're welcome.
Okay? God bless.
Yes, thank you.
Well, after that, thought we did take a little bit of detour and do something a little fun and homework for our listeners. And that is, there are some movies that are portraying the borderline personality disorder. And we've talked about one of them, but there's several others.
My favorite one?
The one we've talked about
Right.
is Fatal Attraction,
Right.
thriller from 1987 between Glenn Close and Michael Douglas, and who is stalked by Glenn Close, and whom he's had an affair with, and it portrays Alex, Glenn Close's character, increasingly unstable behavior as a result of having the borderline personality disorder and feeling abandoned by her lover.
Right, and she also seems to perceive an intimacy that's much greater than what is.
Yes.
So in the movie, he's married, and he's having this affair, and so her boundaries are so permeable that she thinks that she's in this great love affair, and that he's committed to her emotionally, mind, body, and soul, and he's just having sex with her. He's having an affair with her. But she just doesn't get it. And what's so sad is because of her own need for emotional stability and her own desire to not be abandoned, she keeps drawing closer to him, and it becomes really, really sick and crazy, and of course threatens the wife.
The whole
right?
9 yards, yes.
The whole family
and
system.
we've been threatening, and we just might have to break down and shrink that movie.
Yeah.
And
I
for
think
those of
it's
you
a
who've
great
seen the movie,
Right, it's
are
scary.
shrinking it, the ending was rewritten. So
Oh, it was?
yes,
Well-
we'll elaborate on that when we shrink it.
Well, one line that I love, or one scene that I love, is didn't that phrase "the bunny boilers" come from that movie? That in other words, she
believe so.
becomes so threatening that she will have him at any cost.
Yep, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And it becomes really, really scary, really,
Very
really
intense.
distorted. And little did he know that he was messing around with a BPD.
You got more than he bargained.
and
You got
he
way more than he
way
bargained.
more than he bargained for.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
Another movie is Girl Interrupted. It's from 1999.
I haven't seen that one.
Where a teenage girl with borderline personality disorder who is admitted to a mental health hospital institution after attempting suicide.
Okay.
Another one is Single White Female from 1992. Bridget Fonda and Jennifer Jason Leigh. They portray the events of a young woman takes a roommate who exhibits some symptoms of BPD and dependency personality disorder, including mirror, impulsivity, and fear of abandonment.
There it is, that empty core.
Empty core.
And sometimes when meeting a client who you're thinking has this inner core, you will physically see little slits on their wrist, and they will cut
There's
themselves.
cutting.
And the cutting is a defense mechanism because they have so much pain on the inside. What they're trying to do is take the pain from the inside and direct
Let it
it
out.
outside.
Yeah.
It's easier to feel the physical pain than to feel the emotional pain. It's also an attention getter. So sometimes you'll see that they're wearing little razor blades around their neck too. So
They're ready for action,
They're
huh?
ready for, and then of course if things get really bad in a certain area, they'll move to another area, or they'll move to the inside of their thigh, and it's really, really sad because basically when we're symptomatic, we are speaking a language and we're crying out for help. And these are signals. Our emotional symptoms are hieroglyphics or clues and cues that point to the cause and point to the fact that we're not well. And so somebody has to read between the lines, and that would be people in the mental health profession. We've got to interpret these signals, and we've got to understand that these people are literally speaking to us because they're crying. They're crying out for help, and this is the way they're crying out for
The
help.
only way they know how.
And as I learned in school from a great supervisor, you have to teach people to put things in words. They can't just act out. They can't just use the razor blade to communicate. They've got to, as you said, express rather than repress and unload, and
As opposed to explode.
explode or implode in
Implode.
this case. Right.
And the last movie is one of your favorites, The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
1939. Judy Garland, which sometimes used the metaphor to describe the disconnected between the dissociated reality and the personality disorder, Oz, and the real world experienced by the non-personality disorder, which is Kansas, which, of course, the line, "I'm feeling we're not in Kansas anymore,"
Not
came
in
from.
Kansas anymore.
Nope. Toto. Excuse me. Toto. I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. We can't forget Toto. Got to have Toto too.
Toto, the truth dog, I call it. I use the metaphor in my book, Be the Cause Healing
Yes, you did.
Human Disconnect. I use the metaphor of the Wizard of Oz because, like the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy takes a journey, and our patients take a journey, and we take a journey into exploration, and we discover that the world that we think we're living in is a sham, and the people who are manipulating our world are actually the cause, which is our family of origin, the blueprint, and then somebody has to reveal the truth, and that would be Toto in the case of the Wizard of Oz, or us in the case of the therapist. And so one thing that we note with borderline personality disorders is a thing called splitting. So they might come into the office and say, "Oh, Jay, you're the most amazing therapist in the whole wide world." And then you pop up and think, "Oh, I'm going to tell the staff how great the session went." And then
Next week,
yeah, you get kicked in the ass, and she tells you that, that she went to see another therapist and she's not coming back anymore. Okay, so you don't know whether you're coming or going, but she will basically, what that is doing to the other is it's a very primitive defense mechanism called projection, and then the therapist will identify with the projection. So that's the projective identification, and so she'll psychologically, on an unconscious basis, enjoy the feeling of you feeling the ups and the downs, because that will rid her of that horrible dysregulation. So better you should feel it. So better that you should feel fantastic and then fall off the pedestal, and then you'll feel fantastic again, and then better that you should feel abandoned. So she'll find herself another therapist and maybe not even show up to the session, and you call her and said, oh, I'm not coming back anymore. And then you'll feel like, what happened? I thought I was the most amazing therapist in the world. How did that happen? So this is the effects on the other people.
And it could happen in mere moments.
Right, exactly.
It's not like it takes time or a week.
No, up
No
and
way.
down and up and down.
It's like flipping a switch.
Right, and if you dare,
Yep.
if you dare activate her feelings of abandonment, boy, you're really gonna get it, Jay. Really gonna get it.
Yeah, they're going to abandon
Right.
you.
Gonna abandon you.
wait.
Watch out. Right, can't wait. Okay, but we do make light of it because sometimes it just helps to put it in perspective, but we're not making light of it because this is a very serious disorder. It's very, very painful to the individual, to the people who are at the effect of these feelings. It's very uncomfortable, very painful, very infuriating. So nobody likes to be in this toxic environment.
It's very intense.
And especially the person suffering from this hollow emptiness within, always feeling threatened that he or she will be abandoned. So it just creates a lot of chaos, a lot of defenses, and a lot of breakdowns.
And each disorder, I think, has its own kind of language.
Yes.
So the idea of a borderline person abandoning you before she or he thinks you're going to abandon them.
Absolutely.
Control.
Right.
Yes. So being able to be perceptive enough to be able to understand what is going on there would allow you to really understand the depth of the pain that the client is feeling.
Absolutely. And the best thing that we can do as therapists is understand and step into their shoes and help to understand why they're signaling us that way. And once logically they're understanding that they want to rid themselves of this pain of being abandoned, and they can, and then you could partner. See, everybody has darkness and light. Okay, panel one, there's darkness and there's light. And so what I like to do with the people that I work with is I have them join me and form an alliance against their own darkness. Okay, because everyone has their health, and we could all tap into people's health. So if somebody is not well, but we partner with that piece of themselves that is well, then we can both align and help that piece of them that isn't well. Okay, so that way you don't form a competitive relationship. You're not always clashing with that person.
Yeah, so the clue that there is a healthy part
There's
is the
a
fact
healthy
that
part.
they have come in for therapy.
That's correct.
They've made that decision.
Correct.
So something is going on in their thinking that they want to raise their level of functioning. They
And
want
they're
to
not
feel
happy.
better. Yes.
Right. They're not happy.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
So we've got like a minute left if we have to shrink our song.
Wow, that went quickly.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
fast show. Anything either of you professionals would like to add? Subtract, multiply, divide?
Just that these labels, if you simplify them, boil down to human connect and disconnect. Mother, infant, disconnect. Father, infant, disconnect. And any way that we've been disconnected from will hurt us, and then it will reverberate in symptoms, and when these symptoms get chronic, they get encrusted into personality disorders and very elaborate defense mechanisms.
And that, folks, is our show. So up to this point, we are now going to shrink our song. But if you'd like to have comments, we're getting more and more, more different ways I've ever experienced to write us. Our email address is info@drjudywtf.com. And you can write us there with letters to Dr. Judy, ideas for a show, song to shrink, or just
Sure, and we
comments
do
on
have
how we
some
benefit.
ideas for a show that I'm going to share with you later, and we'll try to incorporate what you share with us into shows. And also, please
stay
be so
tuned.
kind to leave us your emails. So if you do, then we can put you on our mailing list, and we can notify you of events at the Psychological Healing Center, and we can put you on our mailing list and notify you of future shows.
Dr. G and I are discussing doing a webinar specifically about the mind map and how it impacts you in your life and how you can benefit from it. So stay tuned in that. We're going to be working on that, and probably later this year we'll have more information. So go on the list, and we'll let you know.
Thank you.
The song that we're going to shrink today is by the group The Who, and it is entitled, Who Are You? Judy and I were talking about that, and we thought we'd do this, have some fun. So who are you? I woke up in a Soho doorway. A policeman knew my name. He said, "You can go to sleep at home tonight if you can get up and walk away." I staggered back to the underground, and the breeze blew back my hair. I remember throwing punches around and preaching from my chair.
So the theme, Who Are You, speaks to that empty core of the borderline. That's why I chose the song. And so the policeman knew the person's name, okay? So it's almost like the outside knows the person, but the inside of the person, sounds like this person might be drunk, okay? So that's one of the ways that BPDs act out this, that they self-medicate. So
Soothe
the
the pain.
person's staggering away because clearly they're not doing too well, and they're throwing punches around and preaching from their chair, so they're just a little bit out of it, and they're definitely not emotionally stable.
No, they're only stable if they're sitting in their chair. Well, who are you? I really want to know. Tell me, who are you? Because I really want to know. Who are you? I took the tube back out of town, back to the rollin' pin. I felt like a dying clown with a streak of Rin Tin Tin. I stretched back and I hiccuped and looked back on my busy day, 11 hours in the 10 pin. God, there's got to be a better way.
Well, I guess this must be in England, right?
Yes,
Because
pretty much.
there's the tube, which is the underground, or
Yes.
the subway. I took the tube back out of town, back to the rollin' pin. I felt like a dying clown. So, the fluctuating self-image. First the dying clown, and then with a streak of Rin Tin Tin, the hero, the dog. So what are you? Who are you? The dying clown, the Rin Tin Tin. You could see the idealization and the devaluation. And then there's that frustration. There's got to be another way around this, but they haven't figured out how, because within themselves they don't know who they are because they don't have that stable core.
Who are you? I know there's a place you walked where love falls from the trees. My heart's like a broken cup. I only feel right on my knees. I spit out like a sewer hole. You still receive your kiss. How can I measure up to anyone now after such a love as this?
Well, I don't really know what she means by such a love as this, but it doesn't sound like love to me, okay? So again, what's love is my heart is like a broken cup, and so that person's been broken, abandoned, and then they're finally giving up. They're on their knees. They're trying to humble themselves, and then look how low it gets. I spit out like a sewer hole. There's that horrible hole in the soul, okay, and it's rotting and it's smelly, and it seems like that that sewer infection, yet still